Welcome back to Explain America. This is your host, Kyle Becker. Well, according to the Democratic Party, the radical anti-fascist group that calls itself Antifa doesn't even exist. It's a figment of our imagination, so ignore all of those reports about Antifa revolutionaries burning down cities and committing acts of violence. It is all a figment of our imagination. They are not real, according to Kamala Harris, Chuck Todd, and all of the other people who are putting out talking points because, well, frankly, Soros is panicking, and we're going to tie this all together in a moment. But please, first, like, share, and comment at Explain America. Join us. We appreciate your support for common sense journalism. Now, George Soros has been supporting color revolutions around the globe for as long as we can remember. And he is also someone who is deeply embedded in our NGO network. He has been receiving at times federal grant money for his operations, and his influence is absolutely widespread on the radical left through various foundations, Soros prosecutors. It goes on and on. So inevitably, there has been acts of violence committed by some of these groups that are funded by Soros. And now there's concern in the wake of Donald Trump designating Antifa a domestic terrorist organization, and they're looking into foreign terrorist ties as well. There is a lot of panic on the radical left right now.
According to George Soros' own files from his Open Society foundations, so myself, my colleagues at Capital Research Center, basically went through as many grants of his, as many funding streams as we could find, and here's the smoking guns that we believe that President Trump, if he's informed of it, can use to go after Soros' network of hate in various ways. We traced over $80 million going from the Open Society foundations to at least 54 groups engaged in crime and domestic terrorism on U.S. soil, or that are pro-terrorism, endorsing things like the October 7th attacks, or are associated with foreign terrorist organizations or explicitly pro-terror groups.
And so we saw Chuck Todd on a podcast basically argue that Antifa isn't even real. That's despite having on someone who wrote the Antifa handbook back in 2017. So we're not quite sure what Chuck Todd is smoking here. But here he is on the podcast, and he is denying that Antifa is even a real thing. Watch.
It's going to be this executive order where they're going to try to create a new classification for anybody on the left who opposes Trump as somehow a member of Antifa and a terrorist.
Yes.
Like, this is coming. And I don't think we are fully... Now, I don't think there's any... The problem, like, I don't even know what Antifa is. I know what the definition of Antifa is. And
I know what the word means, but it's not a group.
There is no group.
No.
And so, but what's dangerous is that by designating it, who's going to define who the group is? And if the Trump administration decides to say, you, George Soros, are a part of this group that I designated, and you're like, no, I'm not. And it doesn't matter. Like, they're going to then use that as some sort of potential opening. And I think that's what's so extraordinarily dangerous about these designations. Like what he did with, look, he's sort of testing the theory of this case with what he's doing with Venezuela and sort of designating this sort of, well, they're narco-terrorists.
Narco-terrorist
and somehow it allows, by the way, he's using the AUMF as their legal cover on this, which of course is just
20 odd years old.
So far removed from what the AMUF was meant to be.
And it wasn't just Chuck Todd who did this. It was also failed presidential candidate Kamala Harris, who also pretended not to know who Antifa is. Let's take a look.
We've also now, in an executive order today, we've got the president describing Antifa, the anti-fascist, it's not even really a movement, the anti-fascist tactics of a portion of the protest movement as a domestic terrorist organization. What is your reaction to those things? What do you think the appropriate response is to things like that?
Well, in normal times, we should and could expect that our courts would step in when asked to declare the legality or illegality of what the president is doing, because, Civics 101, we all know. We designed our democracy through three co-equal branches of government, the executive, the legislative, and the courts.
But this denial of Antifa's existence, well, it's going to backfire spectacularly, because anybody who hears this talking point from the Democratic Party can just pull up handbooks from Antifa, news reports about this organization, the acts of violence they commit. They can go to the Justice Department and look at case files. They can go on and on and on. So it's really baffling why they would do this, because there will be an Streisand effect. People will be curious about Antifa, and they were just going to go and see that it's documented and wonder, why are they lying to us about Antifa? Are they excusing this radical organization and its politically violent activities? Why are they protecting them from scrutiny? Why are they blasting Donald Trump, which is really concerned about the political violence that is taking root in this country and is being spread by disinformation from the left? Oh, the irony. And, well, Mike Benz, who you might know, who used to work in the State Department and has gained a quite strong following on social media in the aftermath, well, he explains that Antifa is a kind of underground network that has carried out some missions of color revolutions that the United States government has been implicated in fomenting across the globe. And again, that ties directly into Soros, who was mentioned by Chuck Todd. So let's take a look at what Benz has to say about this, and hopefully you find it informative.
We have been in an undeclared second Cold War since Donald Trump began his campaign to run for president against right-wing populist movements around the world. The Cold War from the 1940s to the early 1990s was against left-wing communism, and our foreign policy establishment, our national security state, engaged in many noble endeavors, but also engaged in many ignoble and covert actions that worked with some very dirty groups to accomplish those means when they could not be accomplished cleanly. Blocking roads, blocking railroads, shutting down highways, bombing buildings. This is something that our foreign policy establishment coming into the Trump administration defined as nonviolent action, because they define violence as bodily harm. So you're allowed to bomb police precincts, bomb pipelines, blow up police cars as part of effectively U.S. foreign policy doctrine. But you need radical, crazy people to do that, which is why you see the State Department and USAID and the Central Intelligence Agency and all of their different NGOs working deliberately with very, very radical groups, often who have kind of psychological derangement or extreme grievances against their government. And this has been bipartisan. The transgender community has been funded by the Republican foreign policy establishment when they serve as a useful hedge against governments that the Chamber of Commerce has wanted to depose.
Well, thank you for watching Explain America. Please weigh in with your thoughts about this. Was Donald Trump right to brand Antifa a domestic terrorist organization? Do you think they're also a foreign terrorist organization? I think these are good questions. But let's hear your thoughts about it, and we appreciate you watching Explain America.